Hi, and welcome to StormShannon.com. In this video, we're going to be talking about hip mobility. Hip mobility is very important. It's what allows us to get in good positions in order to keep our spine straight. If your hips are very tight, it's nearly impossible to get into those positions. It's really hard to lift with your legs, not with your back. So hip mobility is very important. If you haven't watched the other two videos in this series though, like I said in those videos, ankle mobility is actually the most common restriction I see. Upper thoracic extension issues is the second most common, and hips are actually the third. So even though hip tension can cause lots of problems, it's not the most common thing I see. But if you're one of those that has really tight hips, this is the video for you. Some key ideas, some ways you can start working on opening those hips up. So, first thing we're going to do is we're going to test that mobility. So, oh, my helper is here. Thank you, Soleil. So, the first thing we can do is we can cross the leg over. Just bring the foot up above the knee and let that knee fall. You should be able, go, out, hey, go. You should be able to let that knee fall, and it should be able to go parallel to the ground or further. If you cannot get that far, if you're one of those, when you do it, that hip and that knee is pointing up in the straight up in the air, though that outer hip is probably extremely tight. You may also be tight through that inner hip and that groin. So we want to attack those areas to start opening that up. So when you're that tight, what we'll see is when you try to do your squat and you try to get down into the bottom of that squat, one, you're not going to be able to get that low. You're going to be stuck up in here, and your knees are likely going to collapse in. So we need to open that up to get those knees out, which takes the pressure off of your low back and your hips, allows you to keep your spine straight and protected. So to open up those outer hips, the best tool actually is a lacrosse ball. Lacrosse balls work really well. You can start with a tennis ball. If you're really tender, work your way up to a lacrosse ball because these are very, very hard. But all we want to do is get into that outer hip where those tissues are tight and stuck. And we can merely put pressure on it to start with. Then we can start, as it loosens up, start rolling around to break that up some more. I can also, just like the test, I can cross that leg over and I can work in and out through there to free that up. So that works really well for the outer hip. I can also utilize a foam roller that we've used in some of the other videos. So I can get into that outer hip and I can roll through there as well. If I want to intensify it, I can bring that leg up and over, but that requires a little bit of flexibility. So if you don't have that, just stick to leaving the foot on the floor and roll through there and try to open up that outer hip that way. For the inner thigh, probably the two easiest ways to do it. The absolute easiest way is to utilize a muscle roller or a rolling pin. So this muscle roller I like a lot for this because with the three balls, and I can pinpoint the tension areas and really put pressure into any areas where I find extra tension, and I can roll through there and open that up. Once again, I can do this in just a seated position, or I can do it in that stretch position and get in there and really try to open those tissues up that way, and that works really, really well. The other way you can get in there is utilizing the foam roller, but what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to put it at a little bit of an angle so that I can get to that internal hip and I can roll through there and break up that tension. So That works really well to start opening that up, start breaking those tissues up, start getting some range of motion. If you're still lacking quite a bit though, we probably also need to distract that joint. So what you would do to distract the joint is utilize one of the bands. So I'm not going to put a whole lot of tension on this just for demonstration purposes. I'll just show you kind of the setup. What you want to do is you want to bring that band high up on the thigh, up and on the groin, so it's pulling back away from you. Then you can bring that leg up, cross that over, and go into wherever, however much range of motion you have. If you can get all the way to the floor, great. I can lean in and I can really start opening that hip up. If I can't, I can block it where it starts to be painful with my arm, and I can start leaning in that way. And I just want to pulse into that restriction for a good minute or so. And then I can see if I can go a little bit further. If I can block it there, try to do another minute, and just keep working until I can get into that position with that leg down, and I can get in there and really pulse and open that hip joint up. Okay? So, those are all the different ways you can work on that hip mobility to get that freed up and restore that range of motion to help that overall range and get that squat form down. We utilize the squat form because it tells us what's going on in all the major joints, through the spine, through the hips, through the ankles, through the shoulders. It gives us all of that information at once. So it's the easiest test to use. Utilize that squat test. If we're seeing those knees buckle in, then you want to go into check that hip mobility. If that's tight, get in, start opening that up. Don't forget to start though checking the ankles, checking the upper back. Watch those videos first, work on that stuff, add this in, free it all up, get that range of motion back, get that squat form fixed, and see if your back and your joints don't feel a lot better. All right, that's it for now.